Anyone trusting the science is going to end up contradicting themselves. Welcome to Sharpening Arrows, where we train teens to think biblically about life and politics. I'm your host, Victor Jakes. Well, if you're new to the show, welcome. We're excited to have you join us. This is a bit of a unique podcast. I encourage parents and their teens or preteens to listen together because we aren't just going to talk about politics or current events or issues like science. We are going to talk about the best ideas from the other side. Because if you want to debate like Charlie Kirk or ask questions like Allie Beth Stuckey, you must understand your opponent's arguments. And parents, don't be afraid of this. Destructive messages are everywhere in our culture, and we must walk alongside our children. We must sharpen those arrows and help them think before we release them. Now, if you want to watch, we are on YouTube, youtube.com/@sharpening-arrows, youtube.com/@sharpening-arrows. Today, we are going to talk about science and how much weight we should give it. Now, there is a larger discussion here that involves comparing science and Christianity. Are they in conflict? Do you have to choose one or the other? But after last week's 40-minute episode, I apologize. We are just going to take this one step at a time. And so we're just going to focus on the science portion of it. How much faith should you put in science? All right, let's have a pause point. That's another unique thing about this podcast. Parents, I encourage you to actually stop the podcast and discuss these questions with your children. Remember, parents, you are your child's most important teacher. So our first question, do you believe there is a contradiction between science and Christianity? Now, in the popular culture, there certainly seems to be so. And there's kind of this long-running tension between science and faith. So let's dive in. Just a little background on this topic. And again, we're just going to focus today kind of on the science part of it. Should we have kind of a blind faith in science? If you remember during COVID, and I certainly don't blame you if you've blocked it all out of your mind, there was a lot of talk about trust the science. Politico described President Joe Biden's approach with this phrase, trust the science. In an article, Politico wrote, President Joe Biden pledged to maintain an unwavering fidelity to science since the COVID-19 pandemic first emerged in the United States, again and again citing it as his North Star in navigating the deadly virus. So here we see this place of preeminence for science. Dr. Anthony Fauci, head of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, became kind of the point man on all things COVID. And here's what he said in November of 2021. So it's easy to criticize, but they're really criticizing science because I represent science. That's dangerous. So you hear what he's claiming there. To criticize him is dangerous because you're not really criticizing him, you're criticizing science. And another point, Dr. Fauci said, if you are trying to get at me as a public health official and a scientist, you're really attacking not only Dr. Anthony Fauci, you're attacking science. Science and truth are being attacked. And so we saw it very clearly with COVID, but you will hear this, or this will kind of be the undercurrent of a lot of arguments, especially if you are in a public high school or go to a public university. You simply shouldn't criticize the science. How dare you? As we always do in this podcast, we're going to start with arguments for the wrong side. So in this case, it's going to be arguments for why you should always trust the science. You shouldn't criticize the science. Argument number one. It's actually just name calling. You see, you are a science denier. You're old-fashioned. You're still living in the 15th century. Don't you realize it's the 21st century? Oh, you probably believe in God too. What a fool you are. We're past that. You see, here in the 21st century, among the knowledgeable and the learned, we know how things work. We have science. You see, you are weak-minded. You need to catch up with the times. None of these smart, educated people around you believe in spiritual mumbo jumbo. Put your faith in science. All right, let's have a question. Have you ever been personally attacked for your beliefs? And if so, how did you respond? All right, argument number 2. Scientists know more than you do. So of course you should trust them. Which medical school did you go to? Did you get your degree from Dr. Google? Do you have a PhD in biology or chemistry? Trust the experts. They know what they're talking about, and you don't. Pull the phone out of your pocket. iPhone, Android. Do you know how it works? No, I don't just mean, do you know how to turn it on? Do you know what's happening underneath that little screen that makes the screen light up? Can you even explain how you're listening to or watching this very podcast? Of course not. I don't know how to do it. I press a button and it works. I know it's not magic. I know it's science and technology. And I know it's scientists and engineers who made it work. Trust them. Argument number 3. Well, you see, science is tangible in a way that the spiritual isn't. You see, science can be observed, science can be tested, science can be proven. Think about your phone again, or your parents' phone. If your parents really love you, it'd be your parents' phone, not your phone. How do you know that that phone, that device can take a picture, can make a phone call, can browse a website? Because you just go do it. It's testable. You can't run an experiment and prove God. You can't even see him. My iPhone, I can see. God can't see, and neither can you. Look, science works. Modern life runs on science. Look all around you. The car that you drive, the lights that you turn on, the computer, the food that came to you from the grocery store. There's all this science and technology that's powering it. You should trust what you can see, not distrust it based on something you can't see. All right, let's have another pause point. What would you say in response to one or more of these arguments? As you think about that, let me tell you about a terrific book, especially for teens. It's called Memory Burn by J.T. Lindstrom. It's set in a dystopian future where AI definitely hasn't improved the world. They trusted the science and it didn't go well. Memory Burn has terrific action sequences and memorable characters like Elias Vane. He's a smuggler who takes a no questions asked job, and you can guess where that leads, to lots of questions, especially about his past. You see, the AI that runs this world has optimized humans by erasing their past and memories. I have to say, I really enjoyed reading this book. I definitely stayed up way too late one night finishing it. I simply couldn't put it down, even though I paid for it the next morning. Both of my older kids also really enjoyed Memory Burn. Check it out today. All right, let's have a pause point. Which of the great 8 questions would you use in response to these arguments? Now, if you are just joining us, the great 8 questions are questions that we put into our mental toolbox so that when we come across an argument, we know how to dig into it. We can look at its strengths and its weaknesses and see if it holds up under scrutiny. So these are 8 questions that we put in our mental toolbox. Question 1, what happens next? Question 2, has this been tried before? Question 3, is there a principle involved? Question 4, what are the trade-offs? Question 5, what do you mean by that? Question 6, is this an appeal to emotion or logic? Question 7, am I focused on the speaker or the argument? And question 8, what does the Bible say? All right, so let's dig into these arguments for the incorrect side. The first argument is name calling. is making you feel like you are less than because you are willing to question the quote unquote science. Let's look at question 6. Is this an appeal to emotion or logic? And the reason I wanted to start with this argument is not because it's a strong logical argument. In fact, it's neither of those things. It's an attempt to belittle you or to belittle someone else, to intimidate them, to actually to stop them from thinking and just go along with the group. Well, Victor, why are you even bringing this up? We're here to dig into the best arguments of the other side, and you just told me this argument wasn't either strong or logical. Well, it's important to bring up because it can be very effective. You see, people don't like being criticized. People want to be included. People want to fit in with their peers. And if you are in a public high school or you go to a secular college someday, there will very likely be intense pressure to fit in, to accept and reject certain beliefs. So let's have a pause point. Teens, have you ever done something because of pure pressure? Maybe you have, maybe you haven't. But we know that there's a reason that us parents, us old people, are concerned about peer pressure. It's because it changes people's behavior. Why did a student start drinking at the party? Why did they start racing their car in the street, listening to terrible music or movies, or dressing inappropriately? Oftentimes, it's related to a desire to fit in. Now, I'm going to get on a little bit of a rabbit trail. Just forgive me. There is a natural tendency as a teen to start pulling away from your parents to assert your own identity. And some of that is natural. It's not all bad. But you can't just go along with the crowd. You can't just say, at least if you're wanting to obtain the truth and do what is right, oh, well, all these people are doing it, therefore I should do it. Well, if all these people are doing the right thing, then yeah, go ahead. But if they're doing the wrong thing, don't just go along with the crowd. And peer pressure isn't just about what you watch or what you do or how you dress. It can influence people's intellectual beliefs. Think about a time that you were attacked for your beliefs. It doesn't feel good. It's hard. It's hurtful. And so I want to bring this up to one, prepare you. I don't want you to be surprised when it happens. And again, it may have already happened to you in some context. And I'm not going to tell you it won't hurt, because it probably will. But what I'm asking you to do is to recognize what it is. It's not a logical argument. It's an attempt to pressure you to actually to turn your brain off and to stop asking questions. And the second reason I bring this up is to try and help equip you with answers, yes, but also strategy. First of all, I encourage you to pray, to pray and ask God for the courage of your convictions, to keep your eyes so focused on the Lord that you care less about what people are saying, because your priority is the Lord. And that's only going to happen if you are doing those daily habits, those daily routines, spending time in the Bible, praying, going to church, being around other believers. Those things are really important. And so if you're going somewhere, if you're going to a secular college, if you're in a public high school, find a group of Christian believers. Be proactive about that. Find a church. If you have a chance, maybe go to a Christian college. We were made for community. And so don't think that I'm going to be the super Christian. I'm going to go off and it's just going to be me versus the world and I'm going to stand strong. Okay. I mean, the Lord can help people be strong, but he gave us community for a reason. And so just to recap here, name calling isn't a logical argument, but peer pressure can be very effective at changing behavior. All right. Oh man, 15 minutes. I'm not hitting 20 minutes today. Sorry, everybody. All right, so let's get in this argument number 2. Scientists know more than you do. What's appealing about this argument? Well, it's true about some things. Let's go to question 5. What do you mean by that? Scientists know more about what? What are we talking about? Are we talking about your specific specialty of science? Are we talking about history? Are we talking about morality? Are we talking about a political decision? Are we talking about how to change the oil in a car? Because what's happening here when we're just told, oh, just sit there and be quiet, just let the scientist handle this. This is actually a logical fallacy. It's called the appeal to authority. This is from Effectivology website. It defines the appeal to authority as a logical fallacy that occurs when a claim is assumed to be true because it was made by a perceived authority figure. Okay, and this is really natural. We think that, wow, if this person is great at something, then when they talk about something else, they also will be great at this. You can see this most obviously with actors and actresses. Wow, this person is great at pretending to be someone else. I'm gonna take their opinion on politics. Maybe, but don't take their opinion on politics because they're great at this other thing. Make sure their opinion that you like or dislike their opinion on politics based on their opinion on politics, not their expertise in some other area. All right, and then we can look at question 2 here. Has this been tried before? Can we look back and see a time when scientists said we know more than you? And how did that work out? Oh yes, we can see that. In fact, we all lived through that. We endured through that. This is from the Washington Examiner, recapping some of Dr. Fauci's statements. On March 8th, 2020, Fauci told 60 Minutes that, quote, there was no reason to be walking around with a mask, end quote. When you're in the middle of an outbreak wearing a mask might make people feel a little bit better, and it might even block a droplet, but is not providing the perfect protection that people think it is, Fauci said. He also noted that wearing masks can encourage people to touch their faces and possibly transfer germs. But by May, however, Fauci said wearing a mask was a necessary precaution for everyone, sparking many state and local governments as well as private businesses to institute mask mandates. Fauci said in May, again, this is May 2020 from Washington Examiner, that he wore his mask to, quote, be a symbol for people to see that that's the kind thing you should be doing, end quote. Asked later why he changed his tune on wearing masks, Fauci suggested that he initially downplayed the utility of masks to prevent demand from soaring, thereby protecting supply for medical professionals. So again, we could just see this. Do you trust scientists? Well, the scientist said it. I have to believe it. Well, if you did that, you'd be going back and forth because Fauci couldn't even keep his story straight for 2 months. It wasn't just about masks. Again, this one from the Washington Examiner. Fauci and the whole White House coronavirus task force, of which he was a key member, led the charge in proposing social distancing as a necessary step to slow the spread of COVID-19 in early 2020. The CDC guidelines recommended avoiding coming within 6 feet of people from other households. Hey, I don't know if I'm sure you remember this, but I was in a restaurant last week with my kids when we went to the speech tournament in California. And on the floor, there were the, stand here, keep 6 feet of distance. You may see those every once in a while. And that was that recommendation from Dr. Fauci and from this task force spread throughout the whole country. And it was used as the scientific justification for the shutdowns of schools, businesses, and other institutions. 4 years later, however, Fauci told Congress that the 6-foot rule, rather than being based on specific evidence, quote, sort of just appeared, end quote. Isn't that amazing? It just sort of appeared. Trust the scientists. They know more than you. They can pick numbers out of a hat better than you can. All right, so we can look. So if someone says, oh, well, you just have to trust the scientists because they know more than you do, we can just look and we can say, has this been tried before? Oh, yes, it has been tried before. And this one scientist, the one that we were all supposed to praise and follow and almost worship, was basically making it up as he went along. All right, argument number 3 here. Science is tangible in a way that something spiritual isn't, because science can be observed, science can be tested, science can be proven. All right, so let's talk about the appeal of this argument. The appeal of this argument is that part of it is true, okay? And that shouldn't scare us. You have to remember that the most appealing arguments almost always are going to have something that is true, but then they're also going to have something that's not true. So we can agree that science is tangible. You can see it. You can test science and technology. And if someone is making this argument, we should get them to agree to something really foundational and important. Okay, so truth exists. Can we agree on that? That some things are true and some things aren't? Because we'll have a much different conversation if we can just get everyone to agree that, okay, some things are true. And actually getting someone to agree to that is a really big deal. So we have 2 responses to this argument, even while acknowledging that part of it is true. First response: science is not the only way to determine the truth. What happens and what's happening with this argument is that people are elevating science to a pedestal on which it doesn't belong. Let me ask you these questions. Did Julius Caesar exist? Did the Battle of Bunker Hill happen? Is it wrong to murder someone? Yes, yes, and yes. But here's the thing. You can't run an experiment to prove these things. Science can't tell you that the Battle of Bunker Hill happened. Science can't tell you that it's wrong to murder someone. But we know both of those things to be true. And so it's important, even as we can appreciate science, even as we can enjoy the technology that comes from scientific discoveries, to remember that science is not the only source of truth, and it should not be the primary source of truth. This kind of gets to that deeper question of, is there a contradiction between God and science? And again, I'm not going to be able to fully get into this question, but I do want to point this out. Science, by definition, is a study of the natural world. God is supernatural. Do you see the challenge there for the scientist? Science is the study of things natural. God is supernatural. So the scientist is not looking at the area where God is. And again, this isn't a full proof for God's existence, but what it is saying, and it's important to realize this, is that if a scientist says, I've disproven God, science has disproven God. But really? How? Because you're not studying the supernatural. And that's what God is. It'd be sort of like asking a mathematician to tell you the prettiest type of flower. It just doesn't fit. That's not what the mathematician is doing or looking for. All right, and then the second response here to this idea that, well, you should just, trust science over God or the spiritual, elevate science as the primary source of truth. Well, science is done by scientists who are fallible. Scientists are susceptible to outside pressure. Scientists can be dishonest or lazy. Scientists can misinterpret data. Let's go to question 2 of the grade 8. Again, has this been tried before? Have we seen instances of the scientific consensus changing course? Now, COVID is the most well-known example, but it's not the only example. You can find plenty throughout history, but I want to highlight a couple that happened within the last few weeks. This is from the Daily Wire in early February. The American Medical Association, which wields major influence as the nation's largest medical association, has reversed course on its position concerning transgender surgical procedures for minors. In a statement to National Review, the AMA said, quote, "The evidence for gender-affirming gender mutilation, excuse them, surgical intervention in minors is insufficient for us to make a definitive statement," end quote. Adding that it, quote, agrees, end quote, with the American Society of Plastic Surgeons that, quote, surgical interventions in minors should generally be deferred to adulthood, end quote. So you see that? If you just trusted the science, if you just trusted the consensus, the organizations, they just reversed themselves. Now contrast that with the Bible. The Bible says God made them male and female. The science has changed. God's word is still standing. All right, another example. This is from the website Retraction Watch. The Canadian journal Pediatrics and Child Health has issued corrections on 138 case reports. 138 case reports it published over the last 25 years to add a disclaimer: the cases described are fictional. Amazing. The science for 2 decades had something that people thought was real. Oh yeah, turns out it was fake. Here's some more background. Again, this is from Retraction Watch. The corrections came following a January article in New Yorker magazine that mentioned one of the reports about a, quote, baby boy blue, end quote, a case published in 2010 describing an infant who showed signs of opioid exposure via breast milk while his mother was taking acetaminophen or Tylenol with codeine. The New Yorker article made public an admission by one of the co-authors that the case was made up. Do you get this? Do you hear this? Super prestigious medical journal. Oh yeah, we published this thing that was made up. Trust the science. Trust the science, y'all. And as a result of that admission, they published a correction on all these articles. Now, this case was cited in a court case. It likely scared moms around the planet into not taking Tylenol with codeine. And, oh yeah, it was all made up. All right, so let's get to the argument for the correct side. Don't trust the science, test the science. You would be a fool to blindly put your faith in science. You couldn't even figure out what to believe in because scientists disagree with each other. Medical organizations reverse themselves. Even a supposedly prestigious journal published a falsehood and didn't correct the record for years. In fact, many of the most important scientific breakthroughs or discoveries happened because a scientist disagreed with the scientific consensus. So be grateful for technology. But test it. If someone wanted to sell you an iPhone for $10,000 because they said it could teleport you, you would demand proof. Good. That's what you should do. Remember, science isn't the only source of truth. Science can't tell you that Hannibal crossed the Alps. There's no experiment to run that can prove that murder is wrong. Science can't disprove the existence of God because science is the study of the natural world. By definition, it can't disprove the supernatural. Although, if you do science well, you will discover things that point to the supernatural. So science is amazing. Studying the world that God has made is wonderful, even world-changing when it's in its proper place. Science as a category and scientists as a group do not deserve your blind faith. Scientific consensus changes. Scientists are fallible human beings just like the rest of us. Scientists disagree with each other. Now, this doesn't mean distrusting all scientific research or every scientist. It doesn't mean that if a scientist is wrong about something, he or she isn't right about something else. But it does mean that you shouldn't outsource your thinking to someone who claims to represent the science. Don't trust the science. Test the science to determine what is true. If you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe on YouTube or text it to a friend and let them know about this resource. Be courageous like Charlie, stay sharp, and give God the glory. I'll see you next time.